Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this webinar where we are talking all about commercial real estate. So very, very excited to have you with us. And we have got a lot of stuff to cover. We've got some very special guests with us from VRPM and from Savills. Sarah is with me today to help out with that. And we'll get to all those introductions and get to know everybody and why we want to pay attention to what they're saying in a minute. But for now, I just wanted to take a brief moment and kind of go over, a little bit about Matterport. You may not be as familiar as others with it, so just kind of cover what we do, show you a little bit of a demo, and then we'll get to the panel. All right. So with that said, here we go. Okay, so as I mentioned, Sarah Suwanjindar is going to be with us in a moment, and we'll be talking to Mike Merron from VRPM, Sarah Dreyer and Peyton Johnson from Savills, and hear what they have to say. So very, very excited for that. And our agenda today is looking like this. We'll talk a little bit about 3D technology and how it's playing a role in the whole commercial real estate industry. We'll talk about, we'll show a demonstration. We'll go into the role of digital twins and how that is kind of being incorporated into that workflow of commercial real estate. Then we'll talk to our panelists, and then we'll talk. We'll head up the Q&A. Speaking of Q&A, you should see a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can go ahead and tap that, and feel free to ask your question anytime. Just type away. We've got some helpers on hand who can help answer some questions before we get to the end. And if we can't answer them prior, then we'll just go ahead and wait till the live Q&A at the end and address them at that time. All right. So a brief bit about Matterport. If you are new to Matterport and you haven't been with us and unfamiliar with what we do, who we are, we have 5 million spaces under management, which basically means that 5 million, more than 5 million really, spaces, structures, buildings, rooms, anything you can imagine that's been built has been captured and is in the database. So that's by far the largest database of 3D spaces. 250 plus thousand users around the world capturing these spaces. And we have got offices, throughout, just keep kind of popping up. I'm in Sunnyvale, and we've got office in San Francisco, Chicago, Kansas, London, and Singapore. All right, so this is the camera ecosystem. Again, if you're not familiar with Matterport, you may not know that we not only have our own camera, the Matterport Pro 2 that you see here, but we also have the Leica, which is a very high-end precision camera. It does very, very high dimensional accuracy. You can see here it's 0.1% as far as its dimensional accuracy. The Matterport camera is dimensionally accurate to within 1%. We also support the 360 cameras from Insta360 and Ricoh. So a bunch of different models, not just the two you see here. They are accurate to within 4 to 8%. You can also use the iPhone that you may have in your pocket to actually capture a 3D model, which is pretty cool. And lastly, you can just hire somebody. We've got a whole network of capture service technicians who are out there using the Matterport Pro 2 to scan and can provide you a high-end model for whatever your needs are. All right. So looking at digital and how it works with let's stick to not just this vertical, but we the models can be used in a lot of different verticals, but specifically with CRE, commercial real estate. In the pandemic, obviously, it helped tremendously, and I'm sure we'll touch on that with the panelists and see what they have to say. But clearly, when people can't come to you, you can provide them with a digital twin model that they can virtually experience, without having to to come on site. So that's great. So it's been tremendously helpful throughout the pandemic, but not only that, after the pandemic is over, it just seems to be a much more efficient way of showing people the property, right? You don't have to be on site to see it. So a lot of times, you may not be able to know whether a property is the right fit for you, but I would say that you can certainly tell whether a property is not the right fit for you. Okay, so that's very, very important, and part of how this helps make the whole process of leasing and selling commercial real estate so much more efficient. You don't have to go to every single property before closing a deal. Okay, I'm sure there's a lot of other things that we'll get to with the panelists, but that's just an example. All right. So how the digital world is here to stay. Basically, you can use, with these Matterport models, these digital twins, for a lot of different things. The benefit of having a digital twin, beyond having something that is just 2D images, or even if it's 360-degree panoramas, you're still talking about a two-dimensional image. With a digital twin, with something that is dimensionally accurate and to scale of the actual property, you have the ability of taking measurements. You have the ability of knowing how it's going to work with what you need. If you're talking about filling it with a bunch of desks for employees, then you can know exactly how many are going to fit before ever going on site. So again, it's all about just being more efficient in how you go about it. Okay, let's check out a quick demo. This is just a piece that this is actually a model for Savills. So this is a really cool model. And you can see here, this is the dollhouse, and this is what I'm talking about when I say dimensionally accurate. This is obviously a perspective that really allows you to see the layout and the structure for what it is, precisely. You don't need to guess when going from one panorama to another where you're located and where you're going to end up. So, but this is how we can go through the model. You can also go inside, and you can go to any one of these little circles to see it. You can actually step inside this conference room and see it from inside. And I can also take measurements. So I can take measurements from here if I wanted to. Just double click there, and I know exactly how high this is. If I want, I can check it out in the floor plan view. And again, take a measurement all the way across and know exactly how large this room is. Okay, so I can walk throughout this entire property and see it, how it was captured. So that's pretty much it. Gives you a lot of flexibility, and you can do a lot with it. Like I said, we're going to be talking to Mike from VRPM very soon, who will tell us all about the different things that you can do to allow visitors to see what it could possibly look like set up in different ways. So very excited to hear from Mike. All right, let's keep going here. Okay, so with your digital twin, you're not only able to use it for promotional purposes, which a lot of commercial real estate usage these days is promotion. A lot of, if you've heard of Matterport, you may have come from the fact that, we have a large presence in residential real estate, certainly getting into commercial real estate. And it's all like promotion based, right? But that is actually just the tip of the iceberg as far as what you can do with your digital twin. It is in fact used throughout the entire building's life cycle, and promotion is just a small part of that. Once you're done promoting the space, for example, and the client is in there, they may have a facility management team or person that can then use that model to help with facility management. So you can kind of pass that on to them or share that with them so that they can do things and kind of better understand the space they're in. if Matterport was used in the construction stage of building the facility, that too is tremendous asset to be used for facility management, because you can actually see what's inside the walls and so on. So it can be used again throughout the entire building life cycle. Promote. This use case is just one thing that you can do with the Matterport model, because you have that dimensional accuracy and that ability to measure. You just are able to get so much more out of it. Also, like I said, you can use it for repairs, collaborating with team members. If it's a reconstruction or something like that, some damage was caused, then you can provide that model to the contractor and say, hey, look, this is what we're looking to restore. This is what it was like, and they can provide you with an estimate of what that would cost very quickly and very simply. And you can probably get a few estimates very easily without ever having to actually bring a contractor on site. So there's that, and as well as that, there's also the design aspect of laying out the space. So you can actually take a Matterport model and bring it into, you can extract assets from it that you would not otherwise be able to do with virtual walkthroughs that don't provide you with that 3D aspect. So you can actually provide that to an architect or a designer who can then take it, bring it into something like AutoCAD or SketchUp, create an as-built model and redesign the space for you, or add additions and whatnot. So all that is possible. Okay. Oh, there's one more. Building and optimizing operations. This kind of just goes back to facility management, I think, and taking care. Also education, right? So you can have these matter tags. This is something that we provide, that you can embed a lot of information within the matter tags. If it's things like instructional material, PDF documents, things like that, about the space itself. You can include that in the matter tag and provide that to your tenant, for example, if we aren't talking about commercial real estate, who can use that as kind of like a hub of information anytime they need to know something about something in that space. Then they can find what they need in that model. All right, Sarah. Let's bring you on. There's Sarah. How's it going, Sarah? Thanks for joining.
Doing well, thank you, Amir. That was a great preface. So pleased to welcome Mike, Sarah, and Peyton here today, our panelists. Thank you all for being here, Mike, Sarah, and Peyton. I know that our attendees are probably really eager to hear from you. So Mike, let's kick it off and let's maybe hear a little bit more. You are, I know, the founding director at VRPM, and I was hoping maybe that you could share some of your rich history with Matterport. I know you got started with Matterport as one of the very first Matterport service providers in the UK. So maybe you can share a little bit more about your journey, how you got started, and how you've become now one of the leading platform partners in the UK that specializes in virtual staging, specifically with a specialty in commercial real estate staging.
I was going to start talking then whilst being on mute. I have to reset. Thank you, and hello everyone. So I'm Mike Merron. I'm the founding partner of VRPM. We became an MSP and a Matterport service provider back in 2016. Basically, we're off the back of just knowing that there's definitely a better way to understand property and a way to explore it. And we're real fans of the Matterport camera and the virtual tours with Matterport in 2016. So since then, I think we've scanned something like 15,000 properties across the UK. We're based in London, but we work nationwide. And over the last couple of years, we've scanned we've done everything from sort of large commercial offices, hotels, spaces of all sizes, shapes and sizes. And specifically, our interest in sort of architectural visualization and CGI and design kind of comes from my background. I've been working in architectural visualization and visual effects for TV for a number of years, and we felt that there was such an opportunity to bring some of that learning into the Matterport environment. So over the last 24 months, we've been developing our virtual staging toolset, and we're very happy to launch that in March last year, just happened to coincide with COVID. However, even over that whole period of time, the virtual staging has really taken off. There's a real demand for it because of the extra the extra functionality and the extra the ability to squeeze the asset, as we like to say. We've got these fantastic tools, but what else can we do on top of them? So the virtual staging has gone from strength to strength over the last 12 months.
That's wonderful. And we're looking forward to jumping into a demo in just a few minutes. But first, I wanted to introduce Savills and our speakers that we have from Savills. Savills is a global commercial real estate leader. We have Sarah Dreyer, VP and Head of America's Research, and Peyton Johnson, Transaction Management Manager, with us here today. Sarah and Peyton, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about Savills and your roles there.
Sure, happy to. Thanks so much, Sarah. And again, I'm Sarah Dreyer. I'm Vice President and Head of America's Research here at Savills. And as you mentioned, Savills is a global commercial real estate services firm. But here in the U.S., we have unique expertise in tenant advisory in North America, where we have close to 40 locations across the U.S. and Canada. Our services here include everything from leasing representation to location and workplace strategy, project management, and real estate data analytics and visualization through technology, but it's all geared towards occupiers and users of space. So in my role, I have oversight of our research and data operations, but as those two components are feeding very heavily into technology, I also get to have experience and insight on many of our emerging technology platforms and tools. And I'm delighted to have Peyton Johnson here with me on the call. Peyton's one of our top experts in occupier services and technology, so I'll pass over to her now to introduce herself.
Thanks, Sarah. Like Sarah mentioned, at Savills, I work in advising occupiers globally, and that means that I get to use our client technology tool, Knowledge Cubed, both to undertake portfolio strategy to better document the current state of things and future state, and better understand markets so that site selection and transactions globally are that much smoother and enriched with kind of real touch experiences where digital scans and digital twins really play a key part. So excited to demonstrate that in our platform shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that the platform, and we can jump into that just right here. I know that the platform, the Knowledge Cube platform that you're going to be demoing today, is really one of the differentiators of Savills, and that you've received a number of awards, the Financial Times Business Intelligence Award, as well as Cornet's Global Innovation Award. So congratulations on your success there with your Knowledge Cubed tools. With no further ado, would you like to kind of jump in and give us a preview of how the technology works and how you use it in working with your clients?
So before we kick off into a couple of videos to demonstrate the platform, just to orient you quickly around Knowledge Cube, we've developed this best-in-class occupier-centric technology platform that's really kind of a modular ecosystem. And what that means is we're able to pull a variety of different data sets, whether that's client data sets or our own market data sets that Sarah is on the forefront of developing, pulling those all together in one interactive place in a series of apps. Some of those apps are more designed to light up your portfolio data and your portfolio imagery, and some apps are more geared towards enriching your understanding of markets and the alternatives within those markets. So that's just a quick glimpse into how our platform works. So without further ado, I will hop into a quick video demonstrating first more of a portfolio overview. So this is an app called Portfolio Map and Summary, geared towards being kind of a home screen for everything you need to know about your people and portfolio data. You can see here that a variety of different underlying data sets power a series of key metrics about your costs, your utilization, and things like that. And because of this kind of modular ecosystem that we touched on, you're able to integrate a variety of different databases for real-time information. This is a workplace management tool called Office Space. So you're here able to see how we keep track of our floor plans and desk assignments across our portfolio in North America, which makes operations that much easier. And then, of course, we're able to also document our spaces in 3D digital twins. And that's been really important as for both us and our clients as workplace management changes, as does workplace design. You can kind of see from an old school to a more cutting edge space. So we were just in our New York office that was a 20-year-old build out, much more drywall. And here we take a look at kind of the office of the future and where more of our builds are starting to trend. So this 3D digital scan obviously gives us a great understanding of what the window line looks like, what are the office assignments, and all of those things that help us better understand our portfolio, not just at a KPI level, but really kind of to understand the touch and feel when we might not be able to be there in person. And then next up, I'll give you a quick glimpse into our Market Alpha, which is kind of a platform within a platform geared at helping understand markets. So we understand that when tenants are looking to make a real estate decision, there are a number of different things that come into play here. You know, it's not only what is the best space for us, but where is the best place in the market for us to be located. So you need to first think about where's the labor in a given market and what is the demographic breakdown across a market and the target demographics we're thinking about, so that we can understand the hotspots of the different submarkets that we may want to target. And once you can narrow down, use these tools, you know, whether that's a function of commutation patterns, labor demographics, and trends, then maybe we get a better hone in on a better sense of the real estate. And that's really where understanding alternative spaces really comes into play with both bringing in our market research. So we have the example to here locate our real-time Savills boots on the ground understanding of research in and building stacks and tenants, expiration dates, all of those things to understand kind of what's on the horizon in that particular building. But then just as importantly, once you're going to get a sense for the building and the building makeup, what do the spaces look like? And whether that means we're looking for taking over a space that's already mostly as built, and you really want to find a floor plan that best suits you and your way of working, or maybe it's a law firm tenant, for example, that's going to take down 100,000 square feet of full floors, where it's not so much the as-built condition that matters, but more what's the core spacing and what are the window lines and what are the light channels into the space that really affect how different buildings stack up. So we found this to be a really powerful tool, especially during the pandemic, for orienting leaders who maybe weren't able to tour spaces or even visit that part of the country to understand the options that they had.
That is incredible, Peyton, how you're able to aggregate so much research and so much data in one app. It's just really exciting. I know, Sarah and Peyton, when we spoke earlier this year, that you were working to really build this library of digital replicas for your clients, particularly during the pandemic. And I know, Sarah, I was hoping maybe you could share a little bit more about how you utilized capture services to really, build this digital library in a very short order when we were kind of all in the throes of the pandemic.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And to kind of highlight that, I guess I'll go back to the beginning of our relationship with Matterport. I think we started with purchasing two Pro 2 cameras. They were both located in New York, and we were using them to be able to integrate scans into the technology that Peyton showed, but also to be able to do as needed space marketing on behalf of our clients when, the occasional sublease assignment came up or we needed to do a virtual tour. But then we went into the pandemic, and it was immediately apparent that it could be difficult or even no longer possible to tour office space physically. And we also saw a huge uptick in our clients needing these scans to do more marketing for their sublease spaces. More sublease space came on with the pandemic. So we quickly put heads together and said, how do we scale this? How do we make this something that all of our professionals can use and all of our clients can benefit from? So we not only invested in 8 additional cameras, we put those across our major market hubs in the US, but then expanded into capture services, which has really allowed us the ability to film space wherever and whenever needed. And it is so easy and so efficient. It's really been invaluable to our team at this time. So just imagine what would have in the past and, maybe not even been possible in the pandemic of putting together building options and getting decision makers together to view space in New York that might be in San Francisco and Chicago and DC, and have to spend days and travel time to be able to do that. But you just saw that Peyton was able to orient clients not just to a market, but to individual buildings and spaces in minutes with this technology. So with more flexibility and more of a shift towards adopting smarter and better technologies, this is something, it's not going to end with the pandemic. It's something that's always going to be a part of our strategy to help our clients quickly and better understand their options in the market.
That's wonderful. And it sounds like Capture Services has really been just sort of key this past year, to helping you scale as you go and really build your library. So that's just great. So,
yeah, I have my brokers, they reach out, they say, I picked 2 times and they show up, that's it. And they're thrilled with it.
That's awesome. So you don't have to worry about, the technology or the cameras yourself. You can just order up the scans and they're ready to go. That's great. And I was going to ask you before we switch back over to Mike. I know that you've utilized it a lot, as you mentioned, in your marketing and your site selection, as you and Peyton just took us through. I was curious if you're hearing from clients, like, are you hearing the desire to use the digital twins more in their occupancy planning? Maybe after they start to narrow down, okay, this is going to be the right property for us, and they're starting to think more about, occupying and planning. Are they referring back to the digital twins and looking to use those in more management, property management functionality?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can speak to one specific example. We have a client that's based in the Bay Area and is currently transacting in Berlin. And their design and workplace lead sits in the Bay Area and perhaps would have typically visited Berlin at least once or twice before the build out. And after they narrowed in on a site, they had very rigorous confidentiality concerns about security and access points and things that a 2D floor plan didn't necessarily show. And with the orientation of really getting the 3D interactive ability to kind of retrace steps and retrace entrance points, really got their security team on board for approving the site. And then when it comes to the actual build out, they have a local project manager, but they're gutting the space and also have a restoration clause. So not only is the 3D scan incredibly helpful for someone across the world to manage the build out process, when it comes to restoration, which can be really cumbersome and very legally complicated, it's obviously incredibly beneficial to then at the end of the lease term have that to document, this is the way we got it, this is the way we're going to restore it. And so I think that it's going to change the way they work going forward. Like Sarah mentioned, this doesn't stop with the pandemic. I'm sure now that they're experiencing, because the pandemic required them to, advancements in how they can do things remotely. Who doesn't want to cut down on their 10-hour flights when it comes to work travel? So that's really a use case that we're seeing, I'm working on today.
So true. Thank you for sharing that. That's a kind of incredible full life cycle story that you shared there. Thank you so much. So we'll switch back over to Mike. I know everyone's really excited to see some of the capabilities with virtual staging as it relates to commercial real estate. So Mike, I'm hoping maybe you can jump into a demo here. And it's just really exciting as we visited this past year about the capabilities and opportunity with virtual staging for commercial real estate. The ability to save money, and also, rather than having to do or to be able to visualize it in advance in a very efficient format. And as you keep your demo here, it's really not just about furniture, as I've come to understand. What you're going to be demoing here today is really, floor to ceiling, everything, kind of wall to wall, ceiling to floor, that's involved in these commercial properties. So with that, I'll let you kind of jump into a demo here.
No problem. So just quickly, I'm just going to share my screen. Let me know when that is all up.
Yep, we gotcha.
Okay, so virtual staging. Just quickly, like maybe not everyone understands or knows what it is exactly. So virtual staging, in the way that we're doing it, is essentially taking an existing Matterport scan that's been shot with the BLK, the Pro 2, and essentially add 3D files to it. And those 3D files can be furniture, it can be new walls, floors, ceilings, superstructures. It can be a whole range of different things, even views outside of the windows of properties. So you really don't limit your thinking to what virtual staging can be as just furniture. Virtual staging has been around for an awful long time. And just to give you I'll just hide this. So, virtual staging has been around for a long time, and properties are much more engaging when they're full of things. It makes a house a home, and it completely changes the feeling of a property once it is styled in a certain way and looks a certain way. But also, you're kind of removing that leap of imagination that you're expecting people to have when they're navigating through a property. Now, most times, virtual staging is done on single images or maybe even single panoramic images, and there's something wrong with that, I feel, and that is you don't get a true sense of the space. And what's so fantastic about Matterport and the way you can navigate through from hotspot to hotspot and room to room is you really get a sense of actually being in that space, because you're navigating through it and you know where you've just been and you know where you're going. And so when we virtually stage a property in Matterport, we stage every single scan point as photorealistically as we can. One of the goals that we're trying to achieve here is making sure that the furniture that we add in and the rendering that we're doing is indistinguishable from what it would have been if it had been realistic and actually been shot there. So on the commercial, well, before we get into a commercial demo, how do we do it? Essentially, we are a Matterport partner. We have API and SDK access, and we spent a long time working with Matterport to really streamline and make this process efficient. And so, it's been a trial. It's been a difficult 2 years to get to where we've got to, but we've got something that I think works really, really, really well now. So I'll just hop over to a bit of a demo. So from the previous bits in today's webinar, we're familiar with sort of the doll's house view, and this is kind of pretty typical of a CRE scan for us, where we're looking at something that's been recently finished. However, it's kind of got this metallic floor and it's a big empty space, and is largely it's a great representation as a snapshot of what that space is right now, and that's super useful. It's useful for all sorts of planning, understanding space, showing people around it, remote viewing, all that kind of good stuff. Can't take anything away from that, but how and what can we do to this space to help sell it quicker? And that's where the virtual staging, I think, gets really powerful. So it's a big empty space. I'm not entirely sure how many 1,000 square foot this is, but it's large. If we dive in, this is complete virtual staging of every single scan point in here. I think it's something like 200 scan points. I will try and not go too quick. I have a habit of whizzing through these spaces. So if I just toggle on and off the original scan below, you'll see the difference between what we've added and the original scan. So we can do things like add meeting rooms, change floor materials, add new floors, desking, kitchens, you name it really, meeting rooms. And we don't limit that to just a single hotspot or even just a handful. We do that for as many as we can and have that high verbosity of spaces or scans staged. Going up the next tier up from something like, this is what we call some of the standard virtual staging, really, in that we're adding furniture, and in most cases for commercial property, new floors actually, and the occasional meeting rooms and walls. But the next level up from this is something that we call virtual renovation, which for the next demo is a 40,000 square foot space at the World Trade Center. Now, this is basically just a shell at this point and captured not long after they've just cleaned out all the construction material. So it's a very, very large space, kind of difficult to market or lease. It would take an awful long time to prepare and get this ready into sort of marketing materials, etc. So I think this is something like 300 scan points. And the brief here was to change everything. So new floors, ceilings, walls, lifts, cores, you know, the works. The only thing that we actually kept at the end of this was the view out of the windows, which is fantastic. So we dive into here. So an awful lot of work.
It's fantastic. You can really see how you've gone from such a sterile space to really the office space of the future in terms of, allowing someone to imagine what it can be. So,
yeah, virtual staging of office spaces for sort of sales. I mean, it's done practically as well. People do is they'll stage a single portion of it, and that'll become part of the sort of on-site suite as you get to have a look around, and that's great whilst you're there. But being able to do this efficiently, in turnaround times of something like 7 days for even a space this large, enables property to go from being a construction site and get it right through to marketing quite quickly. One of the nice things about virtual staging within inside of Matterport is, of course, that in the workshop in the back end of your tours, when you're authoring your tours, you can take snapshots, and so all of the snapshots of a virtually staged property all are virtually staged. So you can generate high resolution stills from any single angle you want. And that's an asset that can go out into print or other sort of 2D media. And it's not just about what's inside the virtual tour. So that's one of the other great things about it, and that you can print as many of those off as you like. So it's kind of like an endless supply of CGIs.
Yeah, it's really absolutely incredible. I was going to ask you, as we're riding the tour here, can you explain to folks joining us today how the spatial data is really the backing, the backing of the digital twin with the spatial data really makes this possible, and how you could also see using it in the future, even further beyond?
It's a good point to talk about. So in order for us to do virtual staging in the way that we do it, we rely on the capture being completed with the sort of the higher end portion of the sort of capture environment that Matterport offers. So that's the BLK, the Pro 2, and the Pro camera. Because they are accurate, they're dimensionally accurate, to just a few millimeters in some cases and a few centimeters at most for the Pro and the Pro 2. And being that space is captured, it's, as Amir mentioned, it can be used in, it can be extracted for AutoCAD. But for us, when we're virtually staging it, it gives us essentially an accurate scaled platform in order to put accurately scaled 3D model furniture in. And then it gives a true representation of how big these objects are in space. So we always maintain manufacturer specifications on all of the furniture that we put in here. We don't cheat things by scaling them up. We don't cheat things by scaling them down. Matterport is accurate, and the models that we put in are as accurate as they are as they come from the manufacturers. And that's a really important point there, because there's a lot of, as you're walking around these spaces, you do get a true sense of what it is to be there as you're able to walk around and explore them. It's quite different from any other sort of 360 tour, or even looking at 2D stills. So, with the API and the SDK, getting that accurate data out, accurately visualizing that space, and then getting it back in, keeps everything sort of on a level playing field.
So exciting. Really it is, to see the before and after. And I can imagine it's just really would help cut through and really grab attention sort of in the before and afters, and even seeing some of these views side by side in the before and after in some of the commercial real estate marketing materials would be really powerful. And I know in some instances, depending on the client needs, you're even able to do a couple of different iterations, different configurations within a specific space, as they're kind of evaluating how to plan, how to configure spaces. In some instances, you work with clients in that capacity as well.
So, the range of different people we're working with to do virtual staging, anybody who has a Matterport link, as long as it's been shot with a certain set of cameras, they can have a link from anywhere in the world. It can be virtually staged. Quite often, there's different clients have different needs. So sometimes it's about getting a property staged, making it look as marketable as possible, as quickly as possible. And in those cases, we are using sort of library assets or designs, pre-existing designs that we have, or even taking briefs. And in some cases, it becomes a design tool, where clients would like to see different furniture layouts. They might want to see a high-density fintech layout, or they might want to see something that feels much more creative. Or even some of the projects we've done over the last year have involved working out the spacing between desks for sort of socially distanced working environments and getting people back into the office as well. So we've done stagings of the same space over and over again, which can be combined into a microsite, and clients and potential tenants can look through and see how these spaces can be configured and kind of pick what they like. On top of that, actually, when it gets really interesting is all the furniture that we're putting into these properties are essentially from, especially on the commercial side, from commercial office manufacturing and furniture websites. So it becomes essentially shoppable once it's been laid out, and there's basically an accurate itinerary of how many desks, how many chairs, how many tables, how all this kind of gets put together. So it's useful in many, many different ways. And if you've got the original scan of a property over the life cycle of that building, you can strike it and then redo it again. And so you can really build on the asset. Once you have it in the library, of course, once you can build on it time and time again and revisit things and rejig things, and use this virtual staging as a tool as well as just as a pure visualization tool.
That's incredible. So essentially you could have sort of 3 looks outfitted with furniture, and for someone that's looking to occupy a new space or completely revision their new space, as you mentioned, they could sort of select from 1, 2, or 3 options and say, I want all of the furniture, make it exactly as it is, exactly as you see. Let's purchase all the furniture, all the equipment, and set it as you see it virtually staged. That's incredible. So
yeah, we're working with a few different people in the UK who basically use they lease space and they design and build and fit out the offices with the furniture, all as sort of one package, and they also visualize it through Matterport and with the virtual staging that we're offering as well. So it becomes kind of an end-to-end product in and of itself, really, right from capturing, building, designing the furniture, capturing the space, and then leasing it as it looks.
Incredible. Just want to congratulate you on all your success and your partnership as becoming one of the leading Matterport platform partners, and how you've been able to utilize the API and the SDK to make this a reality is really quite exciting. Thank you for this great demo. I think we're probably at about time where we can switch over to the live Q&A. Amir, do you want to take us into that view?
Yeah, we can do live Q&A. We did have a couple of questions that came in prior as people were registering. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up. I don't think I need to share the screen for that, but we'll just go ahead. I'll just read it out. So Brittany asks, where do you see the market heading for multifamily, and how do you think Matterport showcasing can attract new clients? Are there benefits for virtual staging? I think we just kind of saw the benefits of virtual staging, but Mike, I think this is right up your alley. Having firsthand contact with customers who are using your services, what kind of feedback are you getting from them as far as
how useful and how successful the virtual staging is?
Yeah.
Like I say, the range of different clients, the range of needs from clients the world over. Some people are using it as a design tool, and it's absolutely critical to the way that they understand the space, because they want to try things out, they want to visualize it, they want to be able to walk around and let it soak in. So those designs, those sorts of design decisions, the feedback we get from our clients, it's invaluable, and you could be paying thousands and thousands and thousands to have a visualization studio work with you to do this. And it's because of the Matterport platform, because of the API access that we have, because of the way that we built our tool set, this can be done extremely efficiently in that respect. So from a design point of view, the feedback's amazing, and it's quantifiable because decisions are being made on it. From a pure visualization point of view, it's hard to actually get proper numbers down there. The feedback is normally that when they scan an empty home, they want to make it as appealing as possible. So getting it staged, making it work for either a home or an office space, getting it staged and showing the potential of it, it removes that barrier, that imagination about what could it be like. And I think people keep coming back. We have repeat customers. I think that speaks for itself. It must be working for them in the way they push it forward.
Yeah, the demo to me just said it all. Like I have a hard time kind of visualizing what a place is going to look like without it actually being staged, virtually or I guess in real life. But virtually allows you to do it obviously so much more efficiently, and it's super impressive how realistic it looks. Like, it's just amazing, and I love that it's all to scale.
We have a question coming in for Savills. It's great feedback on the demo. It says, loving the demo. Do you make the data public to your clients, or is the platform used internally for your brokers? So maybe you can share a little bit more about how you're able to work with your clients to show the power of the platform here.
Sure, and Peyton, you can jump in too, but I'll start off and just note that, when working with Savills and specifically the Knowledge Cube team, that team will curate a set of apps that are designed to help with whatever situation we're working with our client with, whether that's location selection and going through options and using tools like Market Alpha to orient to a market, or really digging into a client's individual portfolio data, visualizing that and comparing it to the market. By working with the team, we'll work with our clients to give them the best tools possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And the short answer is it's really a client technology tool. It's developed for occupiers and different stakeholders within our organization, whether that, we have groups that have not only their finance people, but also their HR folks, and different people find different apps useful and can see different sets of data in that way. And the brokers and Savills team that is working with that client also uses it as a kind of the source of truth to make sure that all the different pieces of the puzzle with any individual transaction decision or portfolio strategic decision kind of everyone's working from the same picture. So in short, it's definitely a client technology tool, but our Savills team curates it for you and also uses it to manage the advising.
Wonderful, thank you.
There's another question here that came in. You have shown the ability to add walls. Are you able to remove walls and take heavily built out spaces and convert it to a more open floor plan?
That's the holy grail of things to do when it comes to sort of virtual staging in the Matterport, because what the Matterport camera, when you're capturing a space, you're capturing it as it exists right there and then. It's a physical thing you're going to an actual place and doing. Essentially, we can make it look however it needs to look. We can remove walls, remove floors, take away, make it appear that the furniture that is there has been taken away. It's just a much more involved process. When a property is well finished and empty, and it's just a case of adding furniture and meeting rooms and walls and things that are finished at the same level, it's a much easier project path. And 99 times out of 100, those projects are extremely straightforward. As soon as you're looking to the technical a bit about sort of removing furniture is you just never know what each project's going to be like. So we have to judge those on a case-by-case basis if it's actually worth the time and the effort, and of course the cost of doing so. But it is possible, but it's just not as straightforward.
And then there was a clarifying question: can you generate a fly-through with virtual staging? That's essentially what you were demoing, Mike. Yes, that we were doing the walkthrough. Everything that you saw there was virtually staged. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, the sort of the slideshow button still works with the virtual staging in there. There was another question I saw about. I can't even read it. I can't get through the list. But that remains there. Oh, that was it. When we modify it, essentially we are modifying the original tool. So the original tool becomes modified into this virtually staged version. That's another important point. So we're building on the existing tool. So if someone wanted to stage something a separate way, they would. At the moment, the way to do this is to upload multiple models from the iPad essentially and create unique versions.
So, and if you wanted to also keep, sorry, Sarah.
Go ahead, Amir.
If you wanted to keep the original, like you had a great example there of the World Trade Center, where it had all the stuff, the kind of like the bare bones facility. That would be a great model to provide facility management team, for example, if they need to do any kind of work in repairing future down the road. So you wouldn't want to, do that in virtual staging, making, like you said, make a copy of it and work that, and you can do a couple different options.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that actually addresses the next question that came in from Seth here. If you need the historical record and library of what was done previously, you can make the copies, and you'll have the sort of before and after and the various versions staged, as Mike mentioned earlier, in case you're staging for different circumstances or looking at different furniture or different configurations. You'd have each of those, could be uniquely saved for reference. Let's see here.
Larry asked an interesting question. I'm not quite sure I understand, so I'll ask it. And Sarah, maybe you can help me out, or maybe Larry will just have to clarify. Who controls the files? Is the user required to access files after they are completed to go through Matterport? If that is true, what is the cost of that support? Does that make sense? I'm not really sure, Larry, what you mean by that. If you can clarify.
Maybe the question here, maybe you can chat back, but maybe the question here is centered around, if they're virtually staged. And Mike, maybe you could share how you've worked with clients there, if they have, once it's in their Matterport account, who controls the files once it's yeah.
Okay, sorry, this is Larry, isn't it? Okay, so yeah, so I actually understood that question. There's probably two ways to answer it. Obviously, once you're scanning with the Matterport and you have your Matterport account, you have access to the workshop in the back end where you can do things like download the Matter Pack, which contains the original scan model. You can get access to download panoramics. You can take snapshots. You can do a whole bunch of your own authoring in the back end. Decide where the start points is. There's a whole way of authoring your tours in the back end with Matterport, and that's one side of it. And then on the other side, you're able to work with a company such as ours to design and virtually stage and change those environments. And then we essentially feed that back into the Matterport back end. So when the tour is transferred back to you again, in the Matterport workshop on the back end, all of those updates are within that tour. As Amir mentioned, most people like to create an original copy, which they will use as the baseline, and then have multiple versions where different designs may propagate through different visualizations. So it can all be managed essentially by you, the owner of the tour in the back end.
And then we have a question that came in via chat is, does staging add to the project counts on the hosting platform? So again, I think if you were to copy a space, save it, depending on the plan that you have with Matterport, it would count as an additional space. And then obviously you'd be working with a platform partner such as VRPM on the cost of the specific project for staging. Hopefully that clarifies that. Let's see. There's a question here. If you have a new building, could you take a 3D CAD drawing, bring it into Matterport, and then virtually stage it?
I was looking
Mike,
at that
I'll
too.
let you. Sorry, what was that?
I was just saying, I was just looking at that question as well. And I was just going to say, no, you got to start with the Matterport model.
Yeah. And in some instances, I have visited with quite a few of our customers in the AEC space, and there is some benefit, if you do have that CAD drawing, to do some, verification, to compare an original drawing or file with the Matterport. Often there's a use case there for more verification, validation, clash detection, those types of things, to ensure everything's in alignment. And then obviously, as Amir said, taking the digital twin from Matterport to do that virtual staging, that next step. So,
George asked, is there an editing tool within Matterport that allows virtual staging, or is this a proprietary function of Mike's company? Virtual staging can only be done via the SDK and API tools. So we're providing the platform through Matterport, but you need to have that access through the SDK and APIs in order to do it. And so, I mean, if you don't have that, you're better off just using Mike.
Can I jump in there?
Absolutely.
There is, talking about other. I'm competitive, but I'm not overly competitive. There is, the way that we do our virtual staging is a service, because what we're doing is we're aiming to bring design to it. We're aiming to kind of take a brief, and stage the property and get it back in looking as photorealistic as possible, cleaned up and hopefully indistinguishable from something that would have been shot with actual furniture. And there are other partners out there which allow you to drag and drop 3D models into Matterport. It's just, I think it's just a different sort of use case. So there is other things out there existing right now as other services, but there's just a different way of looking at it. So if you're looking to do it yourself and drag 3D models in, I think that's something that exists already from a few different partners actually. But it's a different end result to where we're kind of aiming our particular implementation of the SDK and the API.
I'm just realizing that there is a question that came in prior to the webinar today from one of our registrants. It said, what is the best workflow to go from a Matterport Pro 2 virtual tour to something that resembles an as-built survey? So again, I think this is kind of in the AEC use case, and speaking with a lot of our clients this year, how they've approached that, particularly during the pandemic this year, is they're doing progressive scans of spaces through construction or reconstruction. So with some of those leaders in construction and AEC, it could be that they're doing it weekly, some as frequently as daily that I've spoken to. And as it comes to more of the survey or the inspection, juncture, they've actually been able to utilize Matterport, as Amir showcased earlier in the webinar, the measurement functionality for verification. Today we didn't spend as much time on matter tags, but I know they're going through and identifying through matter tags, tagging any punch list type items for, question answers that need to be, go back and address with the architect or that project lead in construction. So essentially that's how it's being used for survey and inspection. When you get to those sort of final scans and final stages, being able to really utilize Matterport, even through sign off and inspections in some instances during the pandemic, even in hospitals, which I know can be quite an extensive process, but the digital twins are so accurate that they're able to rely on them, and in some instances go ahead and get that inspection and the certification to close out the project. So it's rather exciting. A lot of examples on how you're able to close out items and really minimize, if not completely eliminate, the need for site visits at certain junctures across rather large projects teams, and that can be extremely important. There was an example, more of a travel and hospitality, like a large hotel was one example there, where obviously you don't want so many contractors coming on site, and just the least amount of disruption as possible for guests or for employees that may be occupying a space. So it can be just really helpful at all of those junctures in progressing a construction or reconstruction based project.
Last question, I think. But super fast. Mike, what software do you use to develop the virtual staging? Unity, Unreal? Do you guys have a proprietary thing that you guys do?
We don't use Unity or Unreal. We have built essentially a proprietary pipeline to do it with the SDK and the API. But essentially, if anyone is interested in looking at virtual staging or getting into 3D, I'd recommend probably the biggest 3D visualization tool out there, which is Autodesk 3ds Max.
Very good. Cool. And that's what allows you to get that super photorealism. I'm guessing that amazing control over lighting and texture mapping and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much. This was super helpful. Love seeing these demos and getting an idea of how Matterport is actually being used out there in the real world. It's cool. So really appreciate all of you. Sarah, thanks so much for helping me co-host this. And to all the panelists, really appreciate your time and taking the time to be with us today. And of course, to our attendees, thank you very much for all these great questions.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.